the question, I guess, over the next however long is going to be, how are you using AI? What can you use AI for? Because I'm kind of an old school Excel person, I still use Excel all the time, and I think it's still a valuable tool. But as I'm looking at AI and all the different ways that it can kind of speed up some of the processes that we have, that's generally what I'm looking at right now, is how can we, in our industry, we're either going to go from like 80s, 90s technology to 2020 all at once, or we're going to have to do it, gradually. And
welcome to Leadership in Manufacturing Podcast, your go-to resource for mastering leadership excellence in the dynamic world of electronics. I'm your host, Sannah Vinding, and I'm so excited you're here. I'm here to bring you insightful interviews with industry leaders from distribution, the manufacturing sector, and also manufacturing reps. Before we start, I have a small request. If you're enjoying our podcast on platforms like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please hit the follow button. Your support is going to help us to bring in even more amazing guests to share the valuable knowledge. So thank you for listening in. If you want to learn more, check out our website. It's called leadershipinmanufacturing.com. I'm your host, Sannah Vinding, and welcome to Leadership in Manufacturing Podcast. We got a new name. So empowering leadership excellence in the electronics industry. I want to introduce today's guest, Eric Gleason. He is a distribution sales manager at ebm-papst with extensive sales experience in the technology industry. He has a background in various sales roles, including regional distribution manager and field account representative, and showcasing his expertise in strategically growing account bases and increasing customer revenues. He's great at building profitable client relationship, focusing on solving their needs and keeping strong, lasting connections. So, Eric, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited. I'm a big fan of the podcast as well. So
I love that. Getting more fans on. This is good. So let's get let's start on the whole, electronics industry and manufacturing. What's your passion about this industry?
Sure. I think this industry I've been in for about 15 years now. I was not an an engineer or anything coming out of college. So I was just reading a recent report that they said 52% of people are not using their college degrees that they went for, and that would be myself. So I guess that's the millennial perspective that I'm taking on this one. As far as the industry itself, I think it is a great industry to be in. I'm really passionate about where it's headed, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
A lot of what we have been working through in the past 20 so years, since I started in 2007. So my kind of start to the industry was post the .com bubble, right in the middle of the Great Recession and stuff like that. So I think we've gotten through some of the challenging times, and now we're into this new realm of AI, robotics, industry 4.0, that type of stuff. So I think it's growing. I think we're heading where it's becoming a lot of the systems that we're using now was being upgraded. So along with all the people, that's the one thing from listening to this podcast, from being in the industry, it's generally the people. It's funny because I actually reached out to one of my friends who is no longer in the industry to ask about, what any thoughts or any things like that. And she mentioned, the one thing, the big thing that she really did like was the people, and that's what she always. So I guess that's where I'm at with it. So,
but you like it. That's why you're
here. I do. Right? Yeah, I think it's getting better. I think we're getting more diverse. I think there's a lot more opportunities that are coming up for different people, different backgrounds and things like that. So, I think the future is bright for this industry, and I think that we're headed in the right directions.
Oh, that's good. So I want to talk a little bit about the generations, because now that you're touching on that as well, right? So how do you see the younger role of what's going in the industry? How do you start? How do you get off as a rocket and actually succeed within this industry when we're looking at this younger talent and younger generation coming in?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's I guess I would be considered an elder millennial, or on the older side of the millennial age range. I was looking at it, preparing for this, is kind of look at, there's the boomers, Gen X, Gen Z, and then there's millennials right in the middle there.
Yeah.
And we've been kind of I want to not pigeonholed into certain, views about us and things like that, but I would say that the time now, like when I first started, it was very much a challenge to move up, or it was limited, I guess, the scope of what you could find to do, and now
Yeah.
there's a lot more. That's what I find now, is that there's a lot of jobs available now, and it's not just sales, it's not just the those titles that we hear coming out of college and things like that. Is like, what do you want to be? I want to be a salesman, or I want to be a
Yeah.
doctor, whatever it is. Now it's like there's product managers under the marketing groups. There's several different types of titles that you could go for, and I think that um, for the younger generation, what they're looking for is, I think, opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're all looking for, honestly, is when we're trying to find our way in your career, is uh, what is even out there. And that was one of the things that kind of got me, is I didn't know what was even available to go
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
and now as you're seeing it, um, there's like the different groups when it comes to data analytics, and we work with several different people, different companies, and they have their own thing that they're presenting to us, to
Yeah.
try and improve the business. That's what everyone's kind of going through right now, as I'm talking about the changes in the business, is everyone's kind of upgrading their platforms, upgrading their systems.
Yeah.
It's been kind of the slow moving thing since I started. And even in my first job at Avnet, that was one of the things that I worked on, was like their new quoting system, as they
Yeah.
were converting from those 80s style, the IBM's black screen with the green lettering and stuff
And the
like that.
fax machine? No.
Yeah, totally. So even when I started, people used to fax us. I used to go
Yeah.
up to the fax machine in 2007. And that doesn't seem that long
Yeah.
ago, but that's how people did business,
Yeah. Your kids
So
will be like, what are you talking about? No.
I don't,
But,
who knows what we're even going to do in 10, 15 years,
yeah.
20 years. We used
Yeah.
to talk about it in 20 years from now, or 30 years from now. Now
Yeah.
it's like 5 years from now, with how fast things are going. So, yeah, that's kind of where I feel like the millennials are kind of having our impact, is we're going to be that bridge, between the boomers and some of those people who are, approaching retirement, things like that. And then the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha is the one, I guess, for, the people born in 2015, 2020 time frame. So,
Yeah.
I think that's part of our thing, is, in millennials, I guess, is just early adoption of technology, and, the internet, and growing up on the internet and things like
Yeah.
that. And, I think that's where we're going to have a role to play, honestly, is as I'm dealing with younger people now. I used to be the only young person. I used to look around and say, hey, who else is here for me to work with, in 20 years.
Yeah.
And now a lot, there's definitely more of us, in the industry, and it's nice to get together. We joke and high five each other. Hey, millennials, like, 'cause in our industry for a long time, it's been very similar people of a certain age,
Yeah.
and so now it's fun. It's funny to,
It's opening up, right?
joke.
And when.
Yeah.
What about communication? Because I think that's one, right? Every generation has as well, how they want to be communicated with. If is it on the phone? Is it the email? Is it the text? Is it
Yeah.
in you're using Team, right? Is it in Teams? If you then talk within your own company, how do you what's your style, and how do you see, what's the future bringing?
Well, I'm finding more. It's funny because I find myself on group texts, right? We
Yeah.
have group text with your friends, with your coworkers. Then you have Slack channels that people do Slack, and
Yeah.
I talk to people via Slack. Then you got Teams, and you got that. So it's kind of the communication for sure nowadays is just everybody has. There's a way to communicate with people. I have people through LinkedIn. You'll have LinkedIn messaging,
Yeah.
Facebook messaging. It's like, it's kind of crazy how many there are.
Yeah.
And
There's so many platforms, right?
yeah, and the platforms, like, so I've had to kind of limit myself as far as platforms. Like, I don't have TikTok. I really don't use Facebook all that much anymore.
Yeah.
I kind of, for communication purposes, like all the apps, I really just stick to text at this point. And, that's the thing is I think depending on who you're talking to, some people really just like email,
Yeah.
and I find email has its own place. Then I think text has a separate place, and
Yeah.
kind of depends on what the communication is about. You know what I mean? With meeting schedulings and things like that versus, hey, I really need to have a proposal presented to me. That's more of an email versus like, hey, can we talk about this? Maybe a text to set up the meeting,
Yeah. Yeah.
something like that. But it really
Yeah.
depends. And,
Yeah. You need to navigate all of them, right?
right.
That's where we
And
are.
the original phone call is kind of going by the wayside now for some reason.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Who leaves a voicemail, right? It's not happening, right? It's only the doctors, right? And the dentist.
yeah, yeah, that's true. And now I'm even seeing my phones, it's writing out the voicemail as it's
Yeah.
being left, which is kind of crazy to me. So now I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so now I have a text of the voicemail.
Yeah.
Which,
One more. You need more
yeah,
storage now. No.
yeah, exactly. But I think you know, I think replacing talking to people in long form or however that is, or over the phone
Yeah.
and getting people's voice, I think is really that's what we lose. We lose is what is the point that people are trying to get across versus just reading the text. You can take that in so many different ways via
Yeah.
text, and that's
Yeah.
what is probably hurting communication these days is too much texting at this point, and not just pick the phone. But I really do at this point where we go, if you send me 3 emails or if there's an email chain going on,
Yeah.
I have to be the person to ask, like, okay, can we just answer the phone? Can we
Yeah.
just talk this through real quick? Because usually you can get stuff done in 5 minutes via talking
Yeah. Instead of
versus
back and forward, back and forward, back and forward,
for
right?
the
Yeah.
whole day. You can spend the
Yeah.
whole day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if somebody's adding even more people, right, to that email, you're like, we need to stop this.
Yeah, and that's I think, to the point about the younger generation, I think it's not even it's just how they're being marketed to now with a lot of the apps and things like that is just quick, 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 quick,
Yeah.
So it's a lot of like really quick interactions that they just happen, and then where the thought comes in, I think, is when you have to take some time and sit back,
Yeah.
So that's what I prefer that versus, quick, quick, quick text.
Yeah.
I don't text all that much in
Uh,
comparison to some people. So
I think it's funny because I think a few years ago there was like, oh, emails is dying, right? It's going away. But I'm like, I think everybody is sitting in front of their computer, right? When they get up in the morning, at some point they are checking, okay, what's the email? Anything burning, right? That I need to jump on, and then you get, start your day. So I
yeah,
don't think
and
they're
it
dying, but it's
definitely,
just flooding more with stuff that you don't need. That's what's happening.
yeah, there's a lot more tasks and there's a lot more things being, dropped in your plate, but
Yeah.
it's how you manage your desk is honestly, that's
Yeah.
we've been heading towards this, and I think the pandemic kind of sped everything up, when everyone's sitting at home like that for however long, and
Yeah.
everyone's in the same uh, time, you know what I mean? Like we're all getting up, we're logging in, and everyone's doing
Yeah.
the same thing all at once. Whereas I remember pre-pandemic, it'd be like if you could catch someone who was going through, jumping from meeting to meeting to meeting, and they're out in the field, they didn't have teams to get on, or it was like
Yeah.
you had to get them on their phone, and that was it.
Yeah.
And same thing. So there's much now. Now the expectations I think have changed as well about
Yeah.
your availability. And hey, I'm gonna jump on this quick meeting, and it's gonna be a Teams meeting, and send me the link, and we'll all log in. Whereas it used to be a little bit more, I think there was a little bit more leeway and a little bit more of hey, the transit time to get to places, you did have to go more places, and
Yeah.
now we're
Yeah.
having this meeting right now where
Yeah.
we might have pre-pandemic had
Now you just
get
need to have
there.
Wi-Fi the whole time, right? And and
Exactly.
you can jump in and be part of any conversations. So
Yep.
how do you, with all this, right, bombarding different platforms, and then how do you stay organized? Because there's a lot of information, a lot of platforms, a lot of communication.
I would say that I try and use my calendar as best I can, and I try and build in time for task-based things. I have a lot of, tactical, task-based, uh, timeline-driven things that I need to get done.
Yeah.
And then you have some more big picture type things and projects that you have to work on as well. And then you got to get in front of the customer as well. So you really have to plan your day, plan your weeks, and plan your months at this
Yeah.
stage, And I've really over time, tried to build in that time to get some of these things done. And there's different ways that people do it. Everybody's got their own ways. Some people are more
Yeah.
tactical, like they can sit in front of their computer for 8 hours. I really can't sit in front of my computer for that long. So I try to sit down and get it all, bang it all out. And then, I try to move to the more, I try and prioritize based off of, what's going to grow the business,
Yeah.
and that's kind of, I think, what you have to take. It's like, what are we actually doing to grow the business? Because to your point, you get bombarded with a lot of things that are not value add. I always think of like, what is value add for the customer, for myself, for our business, and try and focus on that stuff as much as possible versus being bogged down with the
No, you can sit and waste your time, right, on deleting so many emails that is just a pitch or a cold email where you're like, come on, right? Just it's wasting my time.
And you know what? I don't always immediately delete those ones, because as I'm finding, I just recently completed like the Northwestern Kellogg's Business School. Mastering sales, and one of one of the modules, it's a 10-week program, and one of the modules is cold calling. And when I started my career, a lot of what I started was just answering phone calls and just sitting at a desk and being in the call center and answering a lot of different random calls. And then as I progressed to outside sales, I kind of had to like go out and start with people that didn't know who we were, and so it was a lot of cold calling, and I give those people a lot of credit and just to even send the email, and some of them are AI generated and things like that. You can kind of tell at this point, but I like to see what people are sending me, even if it's, and I get a lot of them because on LinkedIn, I'm the distribution manager, which is really for more of I manage our distributors, like our distribution network, versus like the logistics center. And people think I'm more in logistics.
Oh, so you're getting a lot of pitch on that.
Can I ask you about your freight costs? Hey, can I help you with your freight? Are you seeing a lot of that? I have nothing to do with that, but maybe if somebody hears this, they'll know that that's not what I'm about.
Now you're like, you are not that person. Okay, good.
Yeah. But
no, I look as well at some of them ones, right? Because I do click on a few and saying that was really clever made, right? But for me, it has to bring some kind of value. The one that's just asking, can we have a 15 minutes meeting, right? I'm like, what are we going to talk about? That's 15 minutes of my life, or maybe it's 30 minutes you're asking, right? That's not how we start to build a relationship to find out, can we work together? Is there any value? What's the proposition? All that. So it's, but the ones that I do click on, as you're saying, it's, you can get inspiration on how they're doing it, right? And then you can actually copy or get that inspiration for yourself.
Yeah, and a lot of it is, do you know someone? Like, are you a friend of a friend? It's like in regular life. We do business to business sales, but in real life, you don't. Very rarely are you walking up to a complete stranger and asking.
Yeah, right. So in the grocery store,
at least if hey, I don't even know if it's like through LinkedIn or however it is. Like that's why I think the networking events are really even more crucial nowadays. Whereas those events were kind of I don't know if they were getting stale at some point, but now it's like you really you need to be a part of those and introduce yourself and meet a lot of people, and because you never know who you're going to meet that you need to do business with, so I like networking, and I think networking with people is still king of all of it. So
it's powerful. Want to talk about your role as a distribution sales manager? So what's some of the biggest challenges you have faced in your role?
So I've been with ebm-papst for 8 years. I just celebrated my 8-year anniversary, and it's almost like 2 jobs, because I started in 2016, so it was pre-pandemic, and that was a lot more of travel and getting used to traveling up and down the East Coast, where I had not previously done that, and making my flights and booking my hotels and being on time to places when you got to go 3 hours to each way and things like that. So and then now post-pandemic, it's really just dealing with the supply chain. I found during the Great Recession, I wasn't really playing a role in that. I was kind of just there and doing as best I could. And now with the supply chain challenges of 2020, 21, 22, it was like I was much more involved, I guess, in that period there. So dealing with that, trying to support your customers when there wasn't a lot that you could really do for them at that point, and
Yeah.
trying to, but I think we made a focus on not hiding, and really like, dealing with the problems that were in front of us. And so that's been the most challenging thing, I think. I think now in the hybrid role
Yeah.
and coming out of post pandemic and figuring out where we are now, now we're dealing with, we go from not having any parts now having too many parts, and
Yeah.
the economy itself, we're dealing with a lot of the macroeconomic things right now. So I think that's been, challenges, but these are all like good challenges, you know what I mean? So these are all things that as I grow, in my career and as a person, as I get
Yeah.
older, I'm trying to tackle these things head on. It's all just more experience, and you're gaining these different things that you can go forward with in our career. So it's been it was like a fast 4 years, since 2020, but it's
Yeah.
also like that was really 4 years ago, so
Yeah.
it's,
Right.
getting back up to speed with like the timing of everything is kind of a challenge, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think with this industry, right, there will always be disruptions of any different types, right?
Yes,
So it's not that you can sit back and saying, "Oh, I got it now," right? I've totally, don't need to do anything specific. You need to be ready to adapt and to change. If it's a digitalization that you're doing right now, right? There's
yep,
always something that will be thrown at you, and you need to be able to adapt to it.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not when, but if, or not
Yeah.
if, but when,
If yeah.
so
Definitely. So there's a lot going on in this industry, right? Now disruptions, or if it's the AI or with the robotics, So how do you stay updated with the latest trends and technologies?
So being the distribution manager, I'm very fortunate because we have world class distributors, all of them, and they're all doing great work to provide insight and information to our customers and to the suppliers. So
Yeah.
usually, whether it's we don't have TTI actually, but like I used to work at TTI and I followed a lot of their market eye updates.
Yeah.
Sager has some great stuff that they post on LinkedIn. I follow a lot of people on LinkedIn, in our
Yeah.
industry. So everyone's constantly posting about market trends and new products and things like that, new organizations that are happening.
Yeah.
So really, it's just, and that is a noticeable change, I'll say, over the last 5 years or so. People getting on LinkedIn and really using it as an opportunity to like be informative to the customers, things like that. So I really like that. I listen to podcasts and things for more uh, macroeconomics and things like that, and
Yeah.
trying to understand where we're at with Federal Reserve interest rates, and understanding, what
Yeah.
is. I like to understand what is causing different things to happen. You know what I mean? And a lot of it comes down to market rates and interest rates and things like that. So where's the money being spent? That helps us be forward thinking, and
Yeah.
how do we plan around that? So a lot of that type of stuff.
That's good. No, so yeah, I love LinkedIn as well, but I think everybody knows that. But it's I think
Sure.
it's a great platform because it's more professional. It's not that showing, it's not the Facebook, right? It is more business, and it's more. I just like that platform and what's happening on it. So same like you, yeah, right. It's how you
Yeah,
get
and
a lot
I
of good
mean,
information, and there's good newsletters there as well.
great newsletters,
Yeah,
and I learn a lot through like, even like following some of the AI, like whether you're following Google or whoever else. Like I'm
yeah,
very interested in AI and how that's going to play a role going forward.
yeah,
Now that it's you know Chat GPT has kind of laid out the groundwork for, hey, this actually works, and
yeah,
there's ways to use it. So that's going to be the challenge, the question, I guess, over the next however long is going to
yeah,
be, how are you using AI? What can you use AI for? Because
yeah,
I'm kind of an old school Excel person. I still use Excel all the time, and I think it's still a valuable tool. But as I'm looking at AI and all the different ways that it can kind of speed up some of the processes that we have, that's generally what I'm looking at right now, is how can we, in our industry, we're either going to go from like 80s, 90s technology to 2020 all at once, or we're going to have to do it, gradually. And I'm trying to use a lot of the technology that we have right now just to improve our,
Yeah.
whether it's Salesforce or things like that, just to improve our visibility and use our, improve
Yeah.
time to market and all that stuff. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Take advantage of it, right? There's so many
yeah,
tools, but you can also drown in too many tools. You need to make sure that there is you have the integration, and then you need to make sure that everybody in your team or your organization are using it
right.
properly.
That is a
Always the weakest link,
great point. That is a great point. You can
yeah.
become really bogged down with the technology,
Yeah.
So
And you always have to clean up data. I don't think there will be a point where you're like, oh, we caught up.
yeah, that's what I'm
Um,
finding is there's a
yeah.
lot of data out there, and that's probably one of the biggest changes that's happened since I started was the visibility of the data,
Yeah. Yeah.
and talking to people that were selling in the 90s, where it was you would just walk up and they'd ask you what the price was,
Yeah.
and then you'd give them a random price and they'd just give you a PO for it, and nobody had the market price, and now
Yeah.
it's everything's online. And I think that as that has happened, some people have taken that as, oh, this is a negative, but I think that having what I'm finding is that we're we're competing against Amazon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we are all, and as new people come into the industry, this is one of the things that I think has been a topic and kind of a theme of your podcast and the different discussions is, hey, where are all the new people in our industry and how do we
Yeah.
retain them,
Yeah.
And I think understanding that they're starting with buying process of Amazon, which is I need it, how fast can I get it?
Tomorrow.
And the
Yeah.
price is, a negotiated price kind of, and that's where that's
Yeah.
the difference in our industry is we can negotiate pricing a little bit more, but speed to market, or not speed to market, but speed to the customer, how can we process these orders and get the parts to the customers faster?
Yeah.
And the supply chain and COVID and all that stuff really just kind of showed everybody where I never thought that I would get to this level of knowledge as far as like the global supply chain was concerned. Like prior to it was just like, oh, I know that we do business in China, but I
Yeah.
don't know how the ports work and all that stuff. And then when
Now you know.
you're waiting for things at the port, and you go, okay, I know where the ports are at least,
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be the challenges, I continue off on in this
Yeah.
industry and meet newer people and try to explain different things of why does it take so long to do certain things, And
Yeah.
that's going to be the question. That is the question that you get a lot
Yeah.
is like, why are we doing this way?
Yeah.
And there's some of these companies that we work with have been around for 60 years, 100 years, 120 years for some of them.
Yeah.
And so you end up with, a lot of the data and the things like that are not readily available as you would think they would.
Yeah.
And that was what got me when I first started, was why is this taking so long, or why are we doing it this way,
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to have to figure out as I deal with other people is like, this is why we're doing it that way, or this is why we've changed from doing it that way. And it's continual, it's continuous.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's continuous improvement, right? How
yeah.
how do you motivate or inspire your team members? Because now that you're, gaining a lot of this information, if it's, just staying on top of, different updates within the technology or the industry, but also if you're changing, right? If it's a process, or how do you internal, keep everything going? So how do you motivate your team?
Well, I think it's making sure that we're identifying like the purpose behind it. If you don't have a strong purpose for why we're doing something,
Yeah.
it's very hard to get buy-in for that.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, how are we adding value to our business? How are we helping our customers get what they need faster? And a lot of them, I'm fortunate to work with a lot of people that are highly motivated themselves. So there's not a lot of like rah rah type stuff. It's more just how do I take this seemingly tedious task off their plate and get back to
Yeah.
the meat of what we're trying to accomplish. And that's what I think everybody really, or that's what my focus is. But I think that's what everybody's trying to do is complete the big stuff, and
Yeah.
value add stuff. So, that's 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 what I'm focused on. That's what we're all focused on, and keeping the noise to a minimum.
Yeah, that's good. So if there was like a new one, right? It would just going back to the generation. So like a Gen Z, right? Starting. What advice would you offer somebody that's starting within the industry?
I would say definitely be open to mentorship, I guess. That's what I find is that the mentorship piece of our industry has grown and evolved and is becoming probably the biggest part of helping people advance their careers, helping them advance their knowledge set, and being more, um, being better at your job. Like that
Yeah.
one thing. You know, when you first start out, there's a lot coming at you, and I think that one of the things that I've been trying to figure out as I've been kind of pondering this question about how do we get more people into our industry is I think that it is a very engineering heavy industry, and a lot of it is technical knowledge and things like that. And I'm wondering, how do we either lower that barrier of entry, because a lot of it is, technical, and you go to a sales training as a I went to school to be an English teacher. So communication and learning was more my thing. But when I'm asked a question about a specific capacitor or something, or a connector, you know what I mean? Like they call it like, knowing enough to be dangerous, but like, that's what I wonder about is there a way that we can lower that where you don't have to be as technical maybe, or is that a barrier that's causing some people to get in and then go,
Yeah.
whoa, this is way too technical for me,
Yeah.
and bail out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
So
too narrow of a funnel, right? To get into the industry.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, because in our industry, there's people that are specialists at certain
Yeah.
products, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like they know everything about that one product, but then if you ask them to go off the board or go somewhere else or talk about something else, it's like, I don't
Yeah.
know about that. Call those people.
Yeah.
So I guess my recommendation to a person coming in would be like, don't try to know everything. Don't
Yeah.
try and make it a knowledge contest. Just try and know who knows everything. So
Yeah.
be the person to connect people. Be a connector person. To the knowledge experts, I guess. And that's
Yeah.
what people used to tell me too. They said you don't have to know everything. You just have to know who to call.
Good to call. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And be honest, right? So when you do talk to customers and they ask you, just saying, I don't know, but let me find out. And then you actually come back with the answers.
yeah, and learn as much about your customer. If you're a salesperson, learn as much about your customers and what values they have, because every customer generally has a website and they like to post about us.
Yeah.
You like to be the leader in this, the leader in that, the
We're all
quality
leaders.
leader in
No.
this. Yeah, everyone's a leader in something. So it's like,
Yeah.
but why wouldn't you want to be the leader, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the
No,
thing.
you do one.
You're
Yeah.
you're building a product. You want to be the best at building that product. So
Yeah.
ask the customers, about themselves.
Yeah.
I was listening to Don Akery's podcast with you, and he was talking about when you first meet, go on a date, you don't try and kiss the person
Yeah.
when you go on
Right.
the first date, And it's like that's one thing as salespeople that we like to do is here's all my features and benefits.
Yeah.
Buy from me. And I'm
Yeah.
still guilty of doing that. When
Yeah.
I go too fast, I still send emails like that. I go, oh man, I gotta
Yeah. Slow down.
wish I
Slow
had
down.
that one
Yeah.
back. But that's the thing is like, look for your mentors, look for like-minded people.
Yeah.
Reach out to them, be upfront with your bosses. This is one of the things that I think I was pretty upfront about. I wanted to be in the field.
Yeah.
And I remember the challenge of going from inside sales to outside sales with no experience.
Yeah.
And I had to push and push and push. And you just have to ask, you have to keep going. Like, don't get frustrated. Don't get, you're, and it's one of these things that I used to always say, like, you just need one yes. That's the one thing, like, if I could give myself that piece of advice is you just need the one yes.
Yeah.
I interviewed with 8 different people.
Yeah.
For my second job, and had I gotten frustrated after the first or second one, I wouldn't have got that job that changed my life,
Yeah.
And you get the one yes can change your life. So like, just keep going, keep trying. Cause
Yeah.
what it comes down to is,
yeah, I'll continue.
well, just where we're moving parts, that's what we're doing. We're moving parts from one warehouse to another warehouse in the most efficient way possible for the people who need it most. That's how I
Yeah.
would describe it. So what you do with that is really more about um, yourself progressing and getting better at certain things, whether it's communication, organization, whatever. Like that's
Yeah.
one thing about what I've always tried to do is find jobs that I'm not necessarily the best at, but offer me the opportunity to develop skills that I don't currently have, whether it's
Yeah.
organization or setting meetings. Like I don't throw a lot of parties, but I think setting up meetings has been one of those things where I have to get
Yeah.
people together,
Yeah.
and so that's something that I am forced to do in my career. Whereas at home, I'll show up to all the parties, but like I'm not probably not throwing it. So I don't know.
No, that's good.
That's how I try and do it.
Yeah. So skill set, I like that, getting the challenges, right? Because you don't want to hit a plateau. I don't think we're that kind of type of people, right? You want to set some expectation.
Especially in sales.
Yeah.
Especially in sales.
What's your latest, if you would I'm just curious, what's your latest skill that you've learned?
Latest skill that I've learned, maybe not project management, but definitely like trying to be a leader when it comes to different projects and things like
Yeah.
that, and being cross-functional, I guess. Whereas instead of just being with the sales team,
Yeah.
I'm working more with marketing now. I'm working more with engineering and the quality departments. I always like working with quality because I do
Yeah.
like to get into the details and things like that. Um, so yeah, trying to understand the different groups and then add value from
Yeah.
the sales perspective, which
Yeah.
is what I really do like about my current job right now. Is I get
Yeah.
to
So bridging everything together, right? That's also,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's a good one. So maybe we touched a little bit, but I have to ask you, if you had to give yourself an advice like 10 years ago, so what will that be?
10 years ago, let's see, what would I say? I would I would not. I would say don't be so frustrated with being the what do they call it? The boomer tech support type
Yeah.
deal. That was one of the things when I first started. It was like, you guys don't know how to use Excel, or you don't know how to do this, and you don't know how to do that. And I was probably more of a jerk to some of the older people that I was working with, at the time. But it was like, I think technology is changing so fast now that there's
Yeah.
going to come a time where I'm probably going to need
Yeah.
a younger person to teach me how to use one of these, whatever apps or
Yeah.
programs that we have and things like that. And I would say, just be a little bit nicer to people and be a little bit more humble, I guess, because I think I started at a time, and I think it's probably still happening. As I was having some conversations last week with some people about hiring,
Yeah.
and the thing that I kind of heard about was, people are asking for way too much money, and how do I start people, when they have no experience at six figures and all this type
Yeah.
of stuff. And it's just crazy. And I think that the cost of college has gone up so much,
Yeah.
and I think to ask people to start at pay that I started at, which it's unrealistic. And
Yeah.
I think also there are different conversations being had about how to deal with the college loans.
Yeah.
And person starting in a company, at one of our companies, with $150,000 of student loans that they have to pay off. That's a big number every month that they
Yeah.
have to start at. So
Yeah.
it's not them being entitled, or it's not them being, they want it, like, because that's been the thing about millennials, is that we're super entitled and we want everything now and that type of thing. And
Yeah.
I think that it's more about desperation versus arrogance, or I know everything, or I deserve this. It's more
Yeah.
like, hey, I have this number sitting in front of me every month,
Yeah.
and I need to pay it off. And I also want to be able to afford something to do anything, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as we saw over the last 4 years, inflation's gone kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's
So
crazy. Yeah.
I don't envy the people really starting right now, but at the same time, I think like there might be ways that we might be able to say, hey, if you work here for 5 years, or maybe the expectation of how long we want people in jobs,
Yeah.
I think is a changing thing. It
Yeah.
used to be 5 years, 10 years, whatever.
Yeah.
And, people are jumping after 2 years, and it's like, well, do they have to jump after 2 years? Or is it just that they're being, unrealistic in their career
Yeah.
expectations?
Yeah.
So,
That could be a lot of factors in that. Yeah.
because that was a factor for me at one point in my life, where it was like, I have to move, I have to find another job because I need to make more money. And
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't like that, but
Yeah.
money's money. So, you have to do what you got to do sometimes. So while you're doing that, I would say, so yeah, to kind of give myself more would be understand the different jobs that are out there and don't pigeonhole yourself into one job. Like, I have to go get this job,
Yeah.
because I probably could have done a sideways job to some other department, or some other company that's not even selling components and things like that. But I just didn't really know.
Yeah.
And now that I've kind of been able to get out and be in the role that I have now, I'm meeting so many different people, and they're selling so many different things.
Yeah.
And it's just it's fascinating to me, all the different aspects that there are to the industry. So
Yeah.
it's been eye opening. So it's really
Yeah.
that's why I'm much more positive and bullish on the industry than I previously was, probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually I got to
But it's
see it.
easier to look back, right? It always, oh, I should have done that, right? When you're in the middle of it, right? It either is like this mountain that you have to climb, right? Or if this is your student loan or whatever, or it's your, starting a family or buying the house. There's so much happening, right? But when you're a little bit past it, you're like, oh, it's
Yeah,
easier to say, oh, I should have done that. Or you could say, hey, actually, I did really good, right? Because that's, I am where I am.
yeah, and again, and that's why I think the mentorship part of it, especially right now, there are many, many people right now of the generation ahead of older than I am,
Yeah.
that are really looking to give back to the younger generation. And you've had some of them on your podcast already. I know a bunch of them, and they're all really looking for that. They're really looking to help, and they're really looking to, like, help people figure out some of these issues that I just talked about
Yeah.
in a more efficient way, versus like people just spiraling or losing it. And
Yeah.
they're really sharp. They're super nice people, and they helped me along the way. And when you're dealing with some of these problems, it's like you said, it's like you can only see what's in front of you. And
Yeah.
then you deal with other people that are a little bit older than you, and they actually want to help. And I was fortunate to have many, many people help me along the way. But you also have to ask for the help.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing.
And
Is like,
sometimes that can't be, sometimes it's not easy, right? But you need to ask. I think it's as
you
you.
have to,
Yeah.
you need to, you
Yeah.
have to,
Yeah.
and you have to be bold,
Yeah.
especially the younger you are.
Yeah.
That's what I'm learning. It's the same thing with, like, investing, right? It's like when you're younger, you invest more in growth and things like that. You can be
Yeah.
a little bit riskier.
Yeah.
The older you get less risky, right? And
Yeah.
so that's the thing, is when you're younger and you're 22, 23, 24, just go. Like, that was one of the things that I did. I remember I used to just walk around Avnet, and just, Gary Berg was this guy. He said, an industry legend, sat in his corner office, and I would just go mess with him, and I'd say,
Yeah.
Gary, what are you doing back here in your office, and he would take me in and give me pieces of insight that would help propel me to the next thing that I wanted to
Yeah.
go try and do. And it's just like, oh, I would have never known that if I just sat in my cubicle all
Yeah.
day. And
I did talk to anybody. Yeah.
so, you know, there's many people that are looking to help and looking to provide insight to people. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but this is the question about this younger generation, if everyone's on their phone looking at TikTok all day,
Yeah.
do they have that ability to go out and ask?
Yeah.
So I'm challenging them right now. Like, I'll be the older millennial guy saying, like, get off the phone and talk to people, but
Yeah.
it's really, if you want to learn and you want to grow and you want to get that next opportunity, like, you got to show that you're at least want it, you got to show that you want it, because they're
Yeah.
not going to give it.
No, you have to do it. I like that. I also like with the whole mentorship, because I think it's a two-way street as well. So even if you do mentor, right, you also learn from that person you're mentoring. So it's a win-win for both.
Yes, for sure.
This has been amazing. So if some of the listener wants to connect with you, how can they reach out to you?
LinkedIn would be the best. Eric Gleason on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I check that more, like I said, probably more than Facebook or whatever. So don't try and Facebook me. I won't check it. And but yeah, LinkedIn's great. If I see you at a conference or something like that, and you hear this podcast, like feel free to come up to me and tell me that you saw it, and I'd be more than happy to have a conversation. Because, like I said, I do like to talk. I like to talk to people. I like to understand people and get to know people. So longer form is better for me. So feel free.
That's good. Okay, and I'll make sure to put that in the show notes and also on the website episode page on leadershipinmanufacturing.com. So, Eric, this was fun. We went all the way and all around. I really like to talk about all the generations because I think it's something huge, and we just need to open our arms within this industry and get younger talent in, and also learn from each other, from all the different generations. And one more thing I think I took in my note here is also the digitalization. Even though that you see some companies ahead of the game, there's still a lot of companies within this industry that still need to go in and do all this or just be part of this digitalization. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was great talking to you. Hopefully we can do it again sometime, and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like Leadership in Manufacturing podcast, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the show wherever you get your podcast. You can follow Sannah Vinding and Leadership in Manufacturing on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Make sure to check our website. It's called leadershipinmanufacturing.com. Stay curious, keep learning. See you next time.